Welcome to the Success Journey Show. Let's travel together through the lives of individuals on the road to success.
Hey, what's going on, travelers? It's Ricky Venters and Marlon Madden. Man, Marlon, you see a little glimpse, that little glow right beside him is the nice sunshine coming through his window. I'm a little jealous, but I'm living vicariously through him over these weeks. So what's good, Marlon? How you doing today?
Oh man, everybody, if you're seeing the visual of this, you're like, man, Marlon went back to his camera that he had before Ricky hooked him up and sent him that nice box. I still didn't tell you what was on the box. It said, the box said, to Big Daddy or something like that.
I was hoping T got that box when he picked it up. Like
what? So imagine your wife would have picked up the box. It's a box of it. He said, "Hey, it's my Big Daddy." So it'd have been crazy. But I'm down in the island of Jamaica today.
In the
islands. Backyard, So it's been great. A lot of things that I'm gonna address at another point in time. After our vacation, I will address, and I'll even try to get some people to come and speak about it. How some things I see on the island, some people that are taking over all the different businesses that's going on here. When you think that there's nothing going on the island, but you see people from New Zealand opening companies here, you see people from China opening companies here, you see people from India opening companies here, you see people from Europe opening companies here. The whole telework here is European, right? Both companies are from Europe, so it's a crazy, and somehow they convince everybody on the island to have two phones. Imagine that. So everybody has one for one company and one for another company.
What?
Bruh, these guys out here are taking it up.
Oh man.
You're the best experience no matter where you go.
Yeah, man. Love it. Well, hey guys, man, we're really excited about this episode as every week. Really excited to jump into it and talk with this guest. Starting in the corporate world, transitioning into the new into the entrepreneurship. It's not an easy journey. There's a lot of risks. There are unknowns that you're jumping into, and you'll learn today just how this individual went through that transition, how he scaled in that transition, and how he's thriving in that transition right now. So, man, without further ado, the next voice you'll hear after the I love saying. That's an inside joke, man. That's the inside joke, man. That's church service right there. The next voice you'll hear after the special music, but the next voice you'll hear after this intermission here, or what do we call it? There's the ad, whatever we call it here. Our next segment, you'll hear our guest, Victor Dedaj. Victor Dedaj, man. So you guys stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Thank you for listening to the Success Journey Show. Please follow us on our social media on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at The Success Journey Show. Also, check out our website at thesuccessjourneyshow.com. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the show.
Hey, what's going on, travelers? We are back in this segment of the show, the part of the show where we bring on a guest to talk about their journey and hear about their life story and how they got to where they are today, the behind the scenes journey. So today we have none other than Victor Dedaj. Victor, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How about you, Ricky?
Doing well. Victor, why don't you start off by sharing with our guests, and we call them travelers around the world, just a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I am a lifelong New Yorker. I've lived in New York all my life. Grew up in the Bronx. Big sports fan, big Yankees fan.
Yes, sir. Yankees, Giants.
Yeah, love the
Knicks.
Giants.
Yankees,
Okay.
Giants, Knicks.
Yeah.
Okay. You're a true New Yorker. You're a
Yeah.
true New Yorker.
Yes. Yeah. And I spent many years in the corporate world because I thought that was the way to go. Started off working in operations, then for many years was a performance analyst. But over the years, I got very disenchanted with the corporate world. I felt it was very cutthroat, especially around the 2008 recession, where I saw a lot of people being let go. And over the next few years, I was like looking at different possibilities. And then in 2013, I was let go from my job. And frankly, I felt relieved because I'd been really tired over the last 4 or 5 years. And then I started looking elsewhere, and I looked at entrepreneurship. So I've done a whole bunch of different things over the past 10 years, but I definitely love it. I love being able to meet a lot of great people, love helping people out, been able to travel a bunch of different places, and I've never looked back.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy, man. As your mind is already starting to shift away from that corporate environment, and you didn't leave on your own, right? You know, you're still there and going through it for another 5 years. As you were going through that period between 2008 and 13, like how was your brain being reprogrammed to start thinking about, you know, what are the other possibilities outside of the corporate world? Did you start entertaining different things and, you know, exploring different things as what you can do outside if you did leave the corporate world?
No, I definitely started thinking about it. The thing is, when you're in the corporate world, you also have a different mindset than when you are an entrepreneur. And
Oh,
and I was looking to be an entrepreneur for a number of years. The problem is I didn't know what to do. And I was also a little bit scared because working in an office was all that I'd known. So trying something new was also kind of scary. So part of me wanted to go, but part of me was also very scared. And then in 2013, my decision was made for me. But man, it's kind of like sometimes you're in a toxic relationship. You're with someone you're not really happy. You're dating someone for a couple of years, 3 years. You should leave, but you don't. And then for somehow she just leaves you, and you're like, wow, I feel so much better now. Or he left me, I feel so much better.
yeah. The comfortability is comfortability. Now, you
The
said
comfort zone, yes.
the comfort zone. Well, you said something about corporate world and entrepreneurship is different mindset. Go ahead and expound on that, because a lot of people think because you're corporate, you can actually be an entrepreneur. But I want you to expound and tell us why the difference, why the mindsets are so different.
Yeah. Well, first, let me just talk about the comfort zone, which you just mentioned. I was in a comfort zone. I really, I knew what to expect when I went to work every day, even though the last few years I was not happy, but I was comfortable, so I knew what to expect. And I guess I was afraid of change. And then when I got let go, I was forced to try that change. Now, it is very difficult to be an entrepreneur in a corporate setting. Now, there are some companies that will allow, but the vast majority of them will not, because they expect you to do things a certain way. You're not really allowed to be free with your thinking, be creative. Some of them will say you can, but generally you basically have to do it the way they ask you to do. And if you don't, you can get into trouble, because that they just expect people in general to fall in line with what they want.
Yeah. Now, that comfort zone that so two of them wrapped up in one, right? Do you think from being in that corporate environment, it's kind of almost tailor-made, like, hey, this is what you do. You come to work, you do this. When you first get there, of course, it's going to be exciting because it's something new. But after a while, it becomes mundane, right? You almost want to work and you're doing the same thing over and over and over and over. Was that some of the things that made you say reluctant to say, hey, I need to get out of this, even though you knew you wanted to get out, but because you're in that comfort zone, what were some of the things that you pinpointed to you that said, hey, Victor, you got to get out of this thing, out of this rat race?
Yeah, and you're right. I did feel in the last few years I was in a bit of a rut. I was kind of doing a lot of the same things over and over. I really wasn't growing as a person. I
Mhm.
also felt like I wasn't helping people out as much. I wasn't making a difference in people's lives. Yes, I was helping some of the people above me, but I didn't feel like I was helping as many people as I could. And it was just kind of eating at me because I really love to help people. And I felt I
Yeah.
was limited as to what I could do when I was in the corporate world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a it's one of those things, like you said, like it's all you knew, right? Um, you're in it, eh, our family members before us, that's what they did, whether they came from blue collar or from the corporate world. It was about getting up and going and punching in time, right? And that's where you saw your worth. Like, and you start seeing people that are become independent and go off on their own and doing things. But sometimes it's that risk factor as well of, like you said, you don't know what to do. I always equate it to just even changing from that journey of school and education where, you're doing that. And the next thing you know, you're shifting to the corporate world. It's like, you're not getting a grade anymore, right? You're not doing this for A, B, and C. It's not only going to be 15-week semesters, right? You're there for a long time. And it's just a change. Same with the entrepreneurial world is like, you can't just show up to work in in the entrepreneurial space or starting your own business. You can't just show up to work and expect to get a paycheck, right? You eat what you kill, as what they say. So, as you're going through all of these and you're talking about mindset, comfortability and mindset, how did you start changing your mindset in order to shift into this new space that you are now? Well, you weren't in the entrepreneurial space when you got let go, right? You were now into a space of no man. Like, what do I do? Like, talk about like what your brain process went through as you were let go. Yeah, it was a relief, but at the same time, it's probably a shock at the same time. And it's like, okay, now how do I pivot?
Yeah, it definitely is totally different. And you're right, it was a bit of a shock trying to do something totally new. One thing I didn't realize from working all those years was how tired my brain was from working in the corporate world for all those years. So I needed a little break for a few weeks, and then I was able to recharge my batteries. But yeah, when you're trying something totally new you've never done before, it's not smooth sailing. You're going to have a lot of ups and downs. And like you said, when you go to work, you get a paycheck every week or every other week. But when you're doing the entrepreneurial journey, you don't get that steady paycheck. In fact, in the beginning, you're probably not going to get any kind of pay because number one, you don't know what you're doing. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You don't have that credibility. People do not know you. It takes a while. A lot of people get frustrated because they're like, they have they'll hear from these so-called gurus, hey, you're going to make $1 million in your first month. It doesn't happen that way. And then they say this is a scam, and they just leave these businesses that they say it doesn't work. It's because they've never learned the proper mindset. They never got a mentor. They never set that proper foundation. Anything you do, you got to set that proper foundation. You got to build the roots, and you got to be patient because in the beginning, you're going to be underpaid for the kind of work that you do. But if you're patient, build that proper foundation, the compound effect will take over. And eventually you will get overpaid for the work that you do, but it's going to take some time. Everything great takes time. And I think part of it's because we're in this society where we want everything to happen yesterday. Whereas 100 years ago, we were a farmer society. The farmer knew you had to plant first. You had to cultivate over the course of several months, and then you harvest. Now people just want to plant and harvest because everything is happening so fast. People are totally impatient. You got to be patient. And if you are, good things will happen.
Yeah, you use some analogies there. You drop so many gems. Traveling, listening, find that part and listening to it again, because you talked about the analogy of the farmer. I love that because picture the farmer just planting and reaping without understanding how to cultivate. Then if say, hey, you luck out, there's some people that luck out. Say you luck out and you just plant and reap. But the next harvest, that cultivation portion is causing problems. There's some new bugs that added into on your farm. All these different, you need some fertilizers are going bad, whatever the situation is that farmers go through, and you don't understand that. What happens with that reaping? You can't reap, and you don't understand that process. So you're absolutely right. This show actually was birthed because of something that you said. Who's trying to tell people it happens overnight? That's why we named this show the Success Journey Show, because every success has a journey to it. Now, once your family background, when you step into the entrepreneur space, you have people that help. Did your family already have some kind of business? Were you around people that were running their own business? What was your environment or your environment pre to you even thinking about going on your own?
Yeah, so there was some of it because I definitely grew around some people who, for example, had some buildings. So they had some residual income from the rents that they got from renting the building. So I definitely saw some of that. And I also saw a lot of people, the majority of people also made money really from working regular jobs. So I saw both sides. But, I never really thought about growing up, it never occurred to me to be an entrepreneur because in school I learned the best way to do it is to get a regular job. So that was drilled into my mind throughout public school, throughout college, and that's the way you do it. But in the later years, like those last 5 years, I did think back to what I saw growing up. So I guess it was in my subconscious mind all the time. So I started realizing there are other ways to make money. And so that started really, it started piquing my interest. So I said, there's got to be a better way.
Mm. Yeah.
Eventually, yes, it did happen.
Yeah. So as you were looking at, hey, this is the next phase of my journey, a lot of people have that fear or that hurdle of, what am I going to do? How can I add value to someone, to the world, whatever it may be? How did you start honing in on the niche in which you are now and realize that was your space that you can offer to people?
Mhm. And you know what? That could take a while. You may not know that immediately. You may need to try several different things. I tried several different businesses. And here's the thing, you're going to fail sometimes. Not everyone succeeds all the time. If they tell you they always succeed, they're most likely lying because you learn from your failures. If you never take a chance, as you guys mentioned earlier, you're never going to get anywhere. You can't steal second base with 1 foot on first base. You have to take that chance. And you're going to learn from your failures. You're going to get feedback. If you think about one acronym for failure is for all I have learned, or first attempt at learning. First attempt but you're going to learn. But if you never try anything, you're never going to get better at anything. So take those chances. You're going to get feedback. And I think so crucial if you're going to be in anything, but especially being an entrepreneur, you need to get a mentor. You need to have someone who's going to guide you along the way, because a mentor has been through what you want to go through, and they've made their mistake, they've learned from it, they've succeeded, and they can help reduce the amount of mistakes you're going to make. Now, you can go online and learn everything that you need to know, but it's going to take you 5, 10, 15 years. A mentor is going to really cut down on the amount of learning you need to do. So instead of taking 10 years, it might take you a half a year or a year or a year and a half. It's going to take you a lot less time if you get a good mentor. Because if you look at all the top athletes, they have coaches and trainers. They know the importance of a mentor, and you really need to, get that mentor. It's going to make such a big difference in your life.
Yeah, with that though, we say, get a mentor, and when you're like we all know, when you're starting off in the business, at the most critical time when you would need a mentor, you don't have any money, right? Because you're just starting off. So, and a lot of these mentors that are out there help our listeners understand, what do you mean by mentor, or finding the right person? Because you can go on social media, you can go online and all these different things or network, and it seems like everybody wants to make money off you. And you're like, man, I would love to give you money, but I don't have money to give you yet because I'm not making any money. How do you navigate that aspect of it?
Well, in the beginning, that's true. A lot of times you don't have the money to pay for a mentor. So what you could do is you could read books by successful people. You can watch videos. There's plenty of stuff on YouTube by very successful people. So in the beginning, you could just do stuff like that because number one, you feed your mindset. Listen to positive motivational videos from successful people. And I think, and that's so critical. Number one, when you start your morning, your first hour is so important because that's where your subconscious mind is extremely impressionable. Don't feed it negative stuff. Don't watch the news in the morning. If you're going to watch the news, watch it at midday. So feed it positive motivational stuff. Read good books. And also, same thing before you go to bed. It's also extremely impressionable. Read and listen to really good, powerful stuff. And there's a lot of great stuff on YouTube and other places. And it's all free. So, okay, books will cost some money, but you know, they're audio books, they're ebooks, they're free PDFs you can find. So you could spend a little bit of money on books, but there's a lot of great free stuff on YouTube that you can watch. So you could do that in the beginning. And then maybe as you make a few more bucks, you might be able to invest in a mentor a little bit later.
I love how you said that. One thing that we love is YouTube University, right? It's a plethora of information out there on there. And, you know, I've done so many different projects by just going to YouTube and following the step by step that many people are giving for free in doing that. And I'm glad you said that because kind of you eliminated the excuse for individuals of saying, hey, you know, I don't have a mentor, that's why I can't grow. You can get books. Here's a quick tip. You know, you can get books from Amazon. You can get the refurbished books, right? And instead of paying $20, you can pay $2 for the book. I've done that for so many of my books, $2 book, $3 book, $4 book. And then you can send it back to Amazon, right? So, and for a fee, send it back there. So the information's all around. And let's not forget about our local library, right? They're still around and maybe far and few in between, but there are libraries out there where you can go and get these same books, check it out for a couple of weeks, read it up, bring it back, check it back out, you know, whatever it is, there is information. You don't have to say, oh, I don't have one of these gurus working with me. I don't have anyone. Yeah, you may not, but there are resources out there to move you along. So I thank you so much, Victor, for like kind of sharing that. So as you honed in on, hey, this is my niche. This is where I am in my journey. This is, you know, how long did it take you for you to really get your gears going in the space of where you are now?
It took several years because I tried various different things. And that's why I said sometimes you need to experiment. And then I realized over the last few years, the two things I really focus on is coaching people and health and wellness. I really like helping people. I'm a big believer that if your health isn't taken care of, you're going to have a lot of problems. Like they asked Richard Branson years ago, if you want to become a billionaire, what would you do? The first thing he said is exercise, be active, because if you don't take care of your health, everything else is not going to fall into place. You might be successful, but if you're having all these health issues and you're 40 years old, does it really matter if you're dying?
Exactly.
Doesn't matter if you're dying. You know, Ricky, you asked a great question before. I want to know how, Victor, how did failure, those, and whichever acronym, what's the acronym? Whichever acronym you want to apply, that the two that you just spoke of, whichever one you want to apply to that failure, those experiments that you went through, how did those build you? What kind of mindset did you have to go through in the process of your mindset to fail when you're saying, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur, I don't have the money, money's not coming in, I'm getting underpaid, all these different things that you're talking about. And then you started Endeavor, and when you started Endeavor, I knew you were excited. You were excited. And then you started to fail. What process, what mindset, how did you work through that to say, okay, I'm going to keep trying till the several years when you come to doing a coach?
Yeah. And I can say straight out, it's not easy to deal with it in the beginning, because here's the thing. In school, you're not encouraged to fail. You're not encouraged to make mistakes, because if you look at when you get your test back, a lot of times you may not necessarily get the checks on the questions you got right, but you get those big X's on the questions you got wrong. So I remember once in high school in a math class, I got the highest score on my finals. I got a 97, but I got one question wrong. And the teacher did not say to me, "Congratulations, you got the best score in the class." He said, "If you had gotten this question right, you would have gotten 100. But that happens sometimes. They'll focus on the things you did wrong, and then you get this impression like, I can't do anything. If you get it, you become afraid to fail. And that happens as well when you work in the corporate world, because if you make a mistake, a lot of times they will like be all over you when you make a mistake. So you're afraid to be creative because you got to be very careful. You're afraid of making a mistake because you know you'll get into trouble. You could be disciplined. You could possibly be terminated because of a certain mistake or two you make. They frown upon mistakes, and that's why it's so hard to be creative. So when you become an entrepreneur, you're afraid to make mistakes too, which is one reason why I think people are afraid to take chances, because they're afraid, oh, if I mess up, what's going to happen? And people are afraid of the fear of judgment, because they're afraid your friends are going to say to you, "Oh, you tried that thing, didn't work out. So, haha, I told you. You should go back to working a job." So that's part of things that happens when you become an entrepreneur, because you have this mindset, man, if I fail, it means I'm not good enough, and I don't know what to do now. So maybe my friends were, I should not have done this. I should go back to working. But what happens is when you learn from these mistakes, you get better. And that's the thing. Adversity can make you stronger. If you never deal with adversity, you will never get better. So when you go through these failures, as long as you learn from it and don't give up, you will get better. And in the long run, if you persist, you will succeed. There's a great story Napoleon talks about in Think and Grow Rich. This guy and his uncle were digging for gold, and they got some gold, and they went to invest more money. They got more equipment, but they found no more gold. So they got frustrated. They gave up. They sold to some other guy who hired this engineer who did some surveying, and he discovered that they had quit just 3 feet from where there was a ton of gold there. And that guy made a ton of money because he hired someone and they got that gold. Whereas those guys lost out on all that money because they quit just 3 feet from the gold. But that other guy, the younger guy, R.U. Darby, became one of the most successful insurance salesmen because he learned from that experience. He did not give up in trying to get clients for his insurance company, and he became one of the most successful insurance salesmen because he didn't give up like he did with his uncle giving up 3 feet from the goal. So that's the thing. A lot of times people give up right before they're about to succeed because they're impatient.
How do you coach when somebody comes to you and they have that failure, scared of failure mindset? Because Rick and I talk about it, and we're not parents. If you're listening to this and you're like, "Oh man, I don't want my kids listening to this episode because they're bashing school." We're not bashing school. We're just letting you know that what are some of the outcomes. Everything has a pro and con, right? And some of the cons of going to traditional schools is, just like you said, the parameter of what the success is when you go to school is passing a test. So if passing a test is the parameter, then nobody cares about a failure that you made. They think that, hey, because you failed, you're not as good as everybody else or whatever the situation is. How do you combat that mindset when somebody first comes to you and says, "Hey, Victor, I want you to be my coach. I want you to lead me to success." How do you combat that failure, scared of failure mindset?
Yeah. Well, part of it is because part of it, I think, is that the way people look at themselves, very often we're taught to focus on the things we do wrong and not all the things we do right. People don't realize they have a lot more successes than they do failures. Number one, if you finish elementary school, that's a success. If you finish middle school, junior high school, that's a success. Finish high school, that's a success. If you finish college, that's a success. If you got your driver's license, that's a success. We don't think of those things as successes. But if you accomplish these things, if you get these certificates, if you get a raise at work, that's a success. If you come home and your kids are happy to see you, that's a success. We never think about those things as successes. We only think about the things we did wrong, and we start thinking, man, I'm a failure. So number one, you have to try to reprogram people's minds and make them realize they have a lot more successes than failures. And once you're able to do that, and they realize, they start thinking of themselves differently. Another thing I like to teach people to do is keep what's called a success log or a victory log, things that you do well. Because a lot of times when you're going through difficult times, maybe in your business, you're going through a good period of the past 6 months of going really well. And then a recession hits. For some reason, your business starts suffering. You start thinking, man, I'm not succeeding. But if you go over that success log and you say, wow, I did this 3 months ago, I did this 9 months ago, you realize you have a bunch of successes, and it helps remind you that you've done a lot of good things. And when you do that, it'll help you keep persisting and not give up.
Mhm. Yeah, that right there with perspective, right? Perspective. And sometimes it's hard for people that are, you know, depending on your surroundings, depending on your goals and things of that nature. A lot of times we don't see the small or the, I won't say small, the different successes along our journeys as anything that's amazing, because like people say, keep your eyes on the prize, right? Like that's just a milestone. And a lot of times people don't stop just to acknowledge or celebrate where I have come in this through this journey, right? Um talk about that. Talk to those people that are, you know, in that space of, yeah, I may have got my master's, got my PhD, got all this, but I'm not making the income I want to make. Or I may have this business and I got, you know, 10 contracts, but I haven't hit the revenue that I wanted to hit, you know, in my company. How do you really help them in their mindset to pause and reflect on what they have achieved so far?
Well, if you're starting a business, yeah, if you're not making a lot of money in the beginning, but you know what? Celebrate the small victories. I'm going to use another sports analogy. Like in football, the starting quarterback gets injured. They bring in the backup quarterback. Now, the coach knows the backup quarterback is generally nowhere near as good a quarterback as the starting quarterback. So he doesn't have him throw 40 or 50-yard bombs. He hasn't thrown 5-yard passes, 10-yard passes. He hasn't complete 3 or 4 or 5 passes. After he completes a few passes, he might try a 20-yard pass or a 30-yard pass because he feels good about himself because he's completed several of these short passes and he starts believing in himself more. That's why it's so important to focus on these little victories. So in your business, okay, you got a business, you try to get clients. Maybe you're not making $100,000 a month, but if you got maybe your first few weeks, you got a number of leads. All right. In the beginning, you may not get any leads, but if after 3 or 4 weeks, you're getting 5 leads, 10 leads, you got prospects to talk to, that's a win. You have people to talk to. If you keep talking to them, eventually some of those people are going to become clients. So maybe after 3 months, you may only have 2 clients, but you still have 2 clients. In the beginning, you had none. And then maybe after 6 months, you might have another 3 or 4 clients. You have, say, 6 clients now. Okay, maybe you don't have 50 or 100 clients, but you're getting more and more clients. And that's why it's so important to be patient and to, again, focus on the things that are happening, the good things that are happening in your business. Because if you start celebrating those little victories, they eventually become big victories. Why? Because your subconscious mind needs to feel that it's getting these victories. Because if you don't celebrate victories, your subconscious mind is going to see everything as drudgery. They're going to say, oh, I'm not doing anything, so why bother? But if you see these as little victories, not only that, celebrate them. And you know what? If you got those 10 clients after 6 months, maybe it's not 50, but it's 10 clients, you know, celebrate. You know what? Go out, treat yourself to a nice dinner or go away for the weekend, because your subconscious mind starts thinking, you know what? This is fun. When we do all this work and we get these results, I'm going to get these goodies. So the subconscious mind, which does about 90% of your decision making, is going to try to come up with ways to help you get more clients and more business. People don't realize your subconscious mind is where all the power is. 95% of the things you do comes from the subconscious mind. So you got to try to keep it out, because it's also very emotional. And that's why a lot of things we do that don't make logical sense, it's because of our subconscious mind. Our emotions really determine most of the things that we do. It's not the logic. Marketers have a saying, people buy on emotion and justify by logic later on.
Yeah, that's when you become a good salesman, I think, when you tap into that emotion or whatever the person finds into. Now, you talk about the subconscious mind. what kind of studies have you done on this subconscious mind, and how do you unlock that potential to make sure that your subconscious mind is actually doing exactly what you need it to be doing to help you on that road to success?
Look, again, that's why I mentioned earlier on the first hour of the day and the last hour of the day are the most important parts of the day, because that's where your subconscious mind is most impressionable. Because in the morning, you're just waking up, you're in that theta state. So, and there's no real filter. So you can send a lot of great positive messages to your subconscious mind. But if you're not careful, you can send a lot of negative messages. Same thing when you go to bed. Think of it this way. When you go into school, if you cram the night before, it could be very effective because you were doing it right before you go to bed. And a lot of what you're learning was going into subconscious mind. It's also why if you watch a scary movie right before you go to bed, sometimes you have nightmares, because your subconscious mind is really having all those messages go into it right before you go to bed. So that's why the first and the last hours is so important. It's when it's most impressionable. That's why you got to avoid doing anything negative those times of the day. Another thing that's very important is your self-talk. People don't realize how many negative things they're saying to themselves all throughout the day. And a lot is because of what we were exposed to growing up. We heard a lot of things, negative things growing up. Because a lot of times people hear the word no far more often than they hear the word yes. So that's why they tend to think negatively from their family, from their friends, from school, other authority figures. Your self-talk can be very damaging because people don't realize how much negative stuff they're saying to themselves, both consciously and subconsciously. So pay attention to your self-talk because it can totally sabotage you. One book I recommend is by Dr. Shad Helmstetter, which is What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, because it made me realize how negative I was being to myself when I was doing my self-talk. And it really made me change how I speak to myself, because if you say a lot of negative, deprecatory stuff to yourself, it's going to sabotage your subconscious mind. So be careful with that. Meditation can be very powerful. Visualization is very powerful. And the people you surround yourself is extremely important. Jim Rohn used to say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you surround yourself with negative, energy draining people, you're going to be just like them. So make sure you're surrounded by people who are successful, who are positive, and don't complain all the time. That's going to have a big effect on your subconscious mind as well.
You're muted.
And I also just listened to a lot of good positive motivational stuff. Again, we brought up YouTube before. You can listen to a lot of great positive motivational stuff all the time. And go to these events which are run by these successful people. It can definitely make a big difference as well.
I love when you said the average of the 5 people that you are around. And, you know, it's one of those things it's a law, right? You don't even realize it's happening, but it is a law. And if anyone will pause right now and identify 5 people that they talk to the most, you'll find a lot of similar traits and mindsets, right? As those individuals that you're around. And not to say that each individual has the same exact mindset, right? But you, like you said, the average of these people. I remember T-Mobile had a commercial years ago. It was Fave 5.
Yeah.
Right. So it was whatever promotional they were having. It was like, hey, who's going to be in your Fave 5?
Yeah.
Right. And people didn't even realize like that was a law that was in place. Like, who are the 5 people you're going to be around with? And that's who you will be, right? And so you're thinking about, who are my Fave 5 going to be in my phone, right? Who am I going to be talking to all the time? And as you said, Victor, encouraging people to really understand the power in that, right? One, recognizing it, but then understanding the power in it. So if I surround myself with 5 individuals, right? If I have an idea of what I want to be and who I want to be, how do I be selective on those 5 individuals that I'm going to surround myself with? So I really appreciate you saying that. Really appreciate you saying that. So as you have built and developed your business to date, it's nothing is really necessarily prescribed, right? Nothing is written down as, and I mean, you may have projections of goals and plans of what you're going to do, right? But how do you know when, even in where you are right now, that there may be times for pivots, even in your current structure? Maybe I may have to hire a virtual assistant. Maybe I need to connect with this organization to handle these aspects of a business that I'm not as comfortable with, or things like that. How do you kind of dissect that as you're growing and learning how to build your ecosystem to support the success of your business?
There comes a point where you realize, I can't do this all by myself. A lot of people think that they can't, but in the beginning, you do have to do that. But if you want to scale your business, you need to get help. You need to get assistance. If you look at any business, a group gives a concert. They're giving a concert, but they're not setting up the systems. They're not selling the tickets. They're not putting the chairs there. They're not doing the advertising. They have other people doing that all for them. And anyone who runs a business, a corporation, they have all these different people working for them. Very successful, some of the most successful people in the world. They have tons of people working and doing all the things that they do, that they don't do. They focus on the 1 or 2 or 3 things that they're great at, and then everything else they delegate to other people. There's a great book by Gary Keller called The One Thing. And very often people try to do like 20 different things, focus on 1 or 2 things that you're really good at, and then just delegate everything else to other people. One of my mentors, his life changed about 8 years ago. He was doing pretty well. He was making somewhere about $10,000 a month. And then he went to an event hosted by Frank Kern, who was this big marketing guy. It was like a 4-day event. And Frank Kern was only there for like several hours, but he got into a 15-minute conversation with him. And Frank was asking about his business. And then Frank asked him, so are you duplicating yourself? And he said, what do you mean by that? He says, have you taught a bunch of people to do everything that you could do, because you're able to scale yourself a lot more if you're able to do that, instead of trying to do everything by yourself? He says, no, no, I don't do that. He says, well, you need to duplicate yourself and you'll be able to scale your business a lot more. So then he went home, he got all his friends. He says, listen, you guys are moving in with me. You're going to live in my house with me. I'm going to teach you guys everything that I know. And that's what he did. He scaled his business. He duplicated it. He focused on the 2 or 3 things he was really good at. And then the other people were doing the rest of the things that he was doing before. And after that, he's never made less than $100,000 a month, because he duplicated himself and scaled his business that way. Wow. He realized that that's the only way you can grow. You can only go up to a certain point doing everything by yourself. You need to get help, a virtual assistant or a partner. That's the only way you can do it. You realize that after a certain point, because they're diminishing returns after a while if you try to do everything by yourself.
Yeah. Wow. That's an awesome testimony. Now, when you're looking to, I mean, and we can go deep in that. We're not going to go all that far, but talk about just even placement, right? I was going to go down a whole journey. We would have been here for another hour if we would have talked about
another hour.
Talk about just the lifestyle of the entrepreneur, and I want to use your picture of Central Park in the background there. 'Cause I remember many a times being in Central Park. I was working with the camp, and I was bringing students to the park, or as a teacher in my early years, and bringing kids to the park. And that park is always full like that, no matter what time of the day. And you're looking, you're like, wait a minute, do any of these people work? And some people think, the life of the entrepreneur is just sitting on the beach, with a laptop, and, or sitting out in Central Park all day and throwing a frisbee, right? Talk to us about the amount of hours that it takes to accomplish a lot of things in this entrepreneurial world that you're in now, that's different from the corporate world that you were in previously.
And anything you do is going to take you many, many hours to become a master at your craft. And I think that's one thing people don't understand. They think they're going to become a master entrepreneur after like 10, 20, 30 hours of work. It doesn't work that way. Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book many years ago called Outliers. He says it generally takes 10,000 hours to become totally skilled at your craft. And one of the examples he used was the group The Beatles. People say, oh, they got lucky. People don't realize about the Beatles was when they were playing those 2 years in Germany, in Hamburg, they were playing 7 to 8 hours a day, not making a whole lot of money, but they were playing every single day, 7 to 8 hours. They were honing their craft. They were becoming better at their music. And it's one of the reasons why they got so good and became successful. It wasn't, they just got lucky. There are some people that might get lucky, but the Beatles spent a lot of hours playing. And that's how they got better at their craft. A lot of people don't know that about the Beatles. So in anything, you have to become really good at your craft you got to practice your craft. And that same thing happens with being an entrepreneur. And again, there's so many different types of entrepreneurs out there, but whatever you're doing, you need to practice your craft and get better at it. So you need to talk to people, you need to talk to clients, talk to prospects. Here's the thing. If you never talk to people, you're never going to get prospects. So yeah, a lot of people are going to say no to you. Yes, but as you talk to more people, you're going to get better at it. You're going to learn how to talk to people better. You'll get more clients. You'll get better at talking to people. But if you never talk to people, for example, you'll never get better at it. And that's one of the big problems. People don't take action on a lot of things. They procrastinate a lot. And as we mentioned before, you learn from your mistakes. You get feedback. And when you're doing these things, you should also review each day and each week, saying, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? How can I improve upon this? And you have to have what's called a growth mindset versus what's called a fixed mindset. A lot of people have a fixed mindset. They think nothing can be changed. But with a growth mindset, you say to yourself, okay, how can I improve things? How can I get better? And that's the thing. Try to be a little bit better every single day. Try to be 1% better every single day. It doesn't sound like a lot, but the compound effect, which I brought up before, it makes a huge difference in the long run. And being consistent is also very important. People don't realize the price of inconsistency. You could think of it this way. A penny doubled over 31 days is over $10 million. A penny doubled every other day, a penny doubled over 30 days is $5 million. A penny doubled every other day for 30 days is $163.84. That's what lack of consistency is costing you.
It's so funny that you said that. I was watching Kennedy Jet Smith, another fellow New Yorker. He said nobody knew who he was his junior year. Nobody. He said, but he always hung around his coach. And he said, his coach asked him one day, he said, hey, Kenny, what you want to do after high school, man? And he said, oh, I want to go to the NBA. And he said his coach nonchalantly said, I'd have never thought that. You don't work hard enough. And he said, what he did was, after that, he did all the ordinary things every day. He said, instead of going on the elevator of his building, he did the 14th floors or the 7th floors. He ran up and down it. He did everything that he normally would do, just the same thing over and over. He said, by his junior year, by his senior year, he could have went to any college. And as you knew, he played with Michael Jordan. So just like you said, that compound interest of just consistently working every day pays dividends, even if you don't feel it. And the numbers game that you talk about when it comes to sales, when you first start something, play the numbers game. If I'm not good at it, do a lot of it. By doing a lot of it, you will hone your skills, and then you become a better, let's use the sales world. If you get a lot of prospects, you're going to get, if you're talking to 10 people, now you're only getting 10. But when you get better, you get 10 people, you probably close 5. Because now you're getting better at the craft. So success is repetitious actions. That mindset that you talk about, subconscious, not telling yourself no and everything, and not thinking that you have to have everything figured out. Sometimes you just gotta leave.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just have to leave and just take that risk.
Yeah.
And when that risk happens, when everything starts unfolding, you're like, oh my goodness. So I'm happy that you talked about that, and that penny. That penny is we're gonna use that.
Absolutely. Victor, as we get ready to close out, and want to be respectful of your time this morning, could you share with us? Sometimes we ask this question, and I kind of got away from it the last couple of podcasts, but as you look over your life, and if you can go back to a time, maybe 2008, right, as your brain is starting to shift away from that corporate, being a diehard. They used to call me the oh my goodness, what do they call me? They used to call me the office man, like oh my goodness, company man, right? When you start shifting your mindset from being the company man and just seeing different things that you didn't like in it, if you can go back to that time and you could pull yourself into the lunchroom, right? I remember those days having a lunchroom, and you could talk to yourself for 60 seconds, knowing what you know now. What would you share with Victor of 2008?
Yeah, well, actually, first I want to talk about a couple of things Marlon mentioned. I think were very important because, again, doing the little things every single day. Success is not built in a day; it's built daily. Because that's what he made me think about when he was talking about the last couple of minutes. And also another thing he says, you don't have to have everything figured out at the beginning. That's where a lot of people make that mistake. It's like they want the how. The how will take care of itself once you take action, and you don't have to figure out everything along the way. You will figure it out. You'll get feedback on how to do things better. But you don't have to know everything right now. You'll figure it out during that journey. So that's the only thing I wanted to add to what Marlon was saying. Now, what I would say to myself was, it's okay to fail. Don't be afraid to take chances. Believe yourself. Realize you're capable of doing so much more than you're doing right now. I think, like, say, 15 years ago, I didn't realize I had that belief in myself. I had a limited view of what I was capable of doing. I've grown so much over the last 15 years. I realize I'm capable of doing so much more. And I'm realizing every week, every month, that there's a lot more I can do, and realize I can keep getting better, and just to work on myself, and also just to surround myself with people who believe in me. Because again, those 5 people you surround yourself is extremely important, because it made all the difference in my life. And really limit yourself with the negative people. And one thing Les Brown says, someone's opinion of you doesn't have to become your reality. Don't let anyone stop you from achieving your dreams.
Yeah, I love it. Victor, man, we thank you so much for really just joining and sharing your insight. Before we let you go, can you share with all of our travelers and listeners around the world where they can find your information and really follow up with you?
Sure. The best thing to do right now, my website is under construction, but they can reach out to me on LinkedIn or Facebook. And my first name is Victor Dedaj. My last name is Dedaj. And for those who want to get a free health evaluation, they can also go to my website, yourfreehealthevaluation.com, and we can just go over that as well.
Love it. Well, you guys heard it here. Thank you, Victor Dedaj, for joining us today. Want to thank you for sharing your insights. Want to thank all the listeners that joined us today. And as we promise, every single week, we'll be here at the same place, same time on the Success Journey Show. Everyone have a good one. Peace.
You've been listening to the Success Journey Show, where your dreams, drive, determination, and diligence are the foundation to success. For more information, check out thesuccessjourneyshow.com. The Journey Squad is here helping you to your destination.